Hi, I'm Don Simonson, a Master Certified Casting Instructor and a member of the board of the Washington Council of Fly Fishers International. And I want to welcome you. And this video is for you folks that are thinking about taking up fly fishing. What is fly fishing all about? What's involved? And so with this video, I hope to share with you some of the basics of on the casting emphasis side, because we have to present the fly, which is an artificial lure that we've tied that it will imitate an insect, a bait fish, or everything that fish eat. And we have to present that fly to where the fish are. And in order to do that, we need some equipment that's strictly designed for fly fishing, because there is no weight in the lure most of the time. It's just a very uh, hair wing, very could be wind resistant a little bit, but there's no weight. So how do we get the fly out there? We have to rely on the equipment, the fly line, which is attached to the reel, along with the leader that goes from the fly line to the fly. So let's look at this. Fly casting is all about energy, energy stored, energy transferred, not about power. So with that in mind, we have to develop potential energy or stored energy and somehow release it. So we have something called a fly rod, which is nothing more than a flexible lever. We bend it with the resistance of the fly line pulling against it, and we stop it abruptly to let it can do the only thing it can do by itself is unbend. So with that in mind, let's just take a look at the fly line that we have on this reel. It's a coated in material with a core, and fly lines will float and fly lines will sink. Fly lines will sink slowly, fly lines will sink rapidly. It depends upon the type of fishing and where you want the fly to be to catch and release the fish. So remember when I said it's energy stored, and we need to transfer that energy once we stop the rod gradually. So we have a leader that's constructed in a tapered manner. In other words, this is called the butt section of the leader, which is tied to the fly line. Look, and there's no mechanical or a metal object. This happens to be a nail knot. There's loop-to-loop connections. But the diameter of this leader here is greater to match the energy transfer from the end of the fly line into here. When we get down to today, we don't have a fly on, we have a piece of yarn, and the diameter at the tippet end of the leader is very a lot less in diameter than it was at the bed. In other words, we have a tapered leader. Beyond, well, I'm not going to pull it all the way out, but underneath the fly line, we have backing. Backing serves two functions. The first function is in case we get a big fish on and it takes all of our fly line, with normal fly lines are about 90 to 100 feet long, and we can put it into play the fish back into the backing. The other thing for the backing is it increases the diameter on the spool, which every time we crank the rod or the reel to bring it in, we get more line back. So first of all, what's this rod? Normally we get rods and they're in 4 sections. This one's in 4 sections, but I just, for the sake of the demonstration, I just broke it in half. So when we adjoin the male ferrule to the female, notice that my guides are 90 degrees out from the top section to the bottom. When I push it on and I twist to line the guides up. So now the guides are all in line. So now we have the rod together. We need to line the rod. So what we do is we put the rod down with the handle on the reel up. We take and form a loop in the end of the fly line. And we take our left hand and we move it down to what the first guide, which is called a stripping guide. We pull it through. We slide our hand up to the next guide. Slide the left hand up to the next guide. Put the loop through and just walk ourselves right up the rod. Not removing the left hand. I'll tell you why in a minute. When we get to the tip top guide, we pull it through and we continue pulling, and you see the yarn coming up, and we pull it out, another couple pulls there. So why did I keep my left hand on the rod? So I don't miss a guide. Murphy's Law. It happens. If you happen to be floating or fishing in a float tube and you're out there and all of a sudden you're casting, your line's not going where you want it, the fly isn't going, and you find out you missed a guide, chances are you have to go back in the beach and redo it. The second thing, why did I pull the yarn all the way up? Murphy's Law, because if I take my rod and put it straight up, it would all go back down and I'd have to start over. Okay, now that we've put our equipment together, let's experiment and let's understand some basic casting mechanics that have to happen. And a couple style functions right off the get-go is, how do we grip the rod? We have the cork. Wherever you want to grip the cork is up to you, wherever it feels good. But there are 3 different styles, and this is a style function of gripping the rod. But I'm just going to explain the first one, and we're going to stick with that. And as you progress, if you decide to really take up the sport, you'll develop your own little style one way or the other. So we're going to start with putting the hand like you would grip a suitcase. You don't do that. You just kind of let it sit there. The index finger is slightly extended under. The thumb is right on top. Thumbnail right up there. And my little finger and my ring finger are the main functions, because when I stop the rod to let it unbend, I'm going to squeeze the cork. And it's going to squeeze with the ring finger and little finger and just kind of use the thumb as a fulcrum. Boom. So if I relax through the casting stroke, when we get there, it's kind of relaxed. And when I stop, there it is. As far as standing, the stance for today, we're just going to relax, bend the knees, and just feet pretty well together. One of the styles is if you're right-handed caster, you move the right foot back. If you're a left-handed caster, you might want the left foot back. But for today, for the basics, we're just going to keep it right kind of square. So now that we've kind of learned how we're going to grip the rod and everything, what I've drawn for you on the ground is a loop. Loops have size, shape, and direction. So we look at this loop on the ground now and the size. It looks like it's about 6 feet, 5, 6 feet from and we'll call this down here where the rod tip is, the rod tip leg. And way up there, we're going to call that the fly leg, or to keep it more simple, that's the top of the loop, and this is the bottom of the loop. Notice the shape of it. It's kind of in a circle on the ground there. And it comes around a bend, right? And so now we have the size. We kind of look at the shape. This is a generic normal loop. And we have direction, because we can cast these loops high and back, low in front, high in front, low in back, level to the side, whatever, depending upon the conditions, we are going to fish under. So these loops are developed on the back cast and the forward cast on every casting process. Okay, now that we've learned about loops in a basic manner, kind of what loops are, how do we develop them? How do we make them happen? So when we move forward now, we're gonna understand what we got to do and why we have to do it this way. In other words, what we want to do is present the fly to a target that, hopefully that's the fish that is feeding, and we want to get it there with a straight line with our line and our leader presented correctly. So I've got two pylons on the tape in front of me. My first pylon is right in front of me, and we're going to be casting horizontal to start with. And so right there, we call it 90 degrees or straight up on a horizontal plane, is where I'm going to stop the rod on the back cast. And when I go forward on the forward cast, because the back cast is back there, when the forward cast, I'm going to stop what we call halfway down. Okay, so that's about 10 o'clock, 10:30. If you want to put it on the clock, there's 12, right? But we don't even just say, this is straight up, this is halfway down. Well, I said early on, how do we bend this flexible lever? The resistance of the fly line pulling against the rod tip. So the first thing we have to do, if I want that fly line to pull against it, I want it straight out, right? In other words, if I have it looking something like that, and I try to cast that, I'm not bending anything till I get way up there. So I want to get the fly line way out straight. And if I'm just learning to cast, we lay the rod down, pull the line out. So now I'm going to smoothly go from slow to fast, stopping the rod abruptly right in front of me. Boom. Notice that the tape I have is a straight line. That's kind of what I want the fly line to do, right? And it's right along that line. So I said, that's pretty good. So now if I come forward, dragging it smoothly, going from slow to fast, and I stop, wow, right along the fly line, right along the tape, nice and straight. That's because the fly line follows the rod tip. And if the rod tip takes a near straight line path as I move it back and forth, I get what we call a straight narrow loop. If I move my rod tip in a doming path, I get something that looks like that or that instead of that or that. Okay? Now, let's take it a step further, because the reason when I'm demonstrating laying the back cast down and laying the forward cast down, you can check the results. So now before we take it vertical, what we call a pick up and lay down, I do not want to allow the back cast to hit the ground. I'm going to start the forward cast when the back cast the line is almost straightened out. So I do that, bingo. There, boom. And so the delay in here is called pause. Okay? So if I just pause, stop, there's a big long pause there. Okay? So let the line hit. Big long pause there. So if I do that and no pause, boom. Okay? Okay, so we've gone now from horizontal, I want to take you vertical. And before I do that, I want to just really kind of describe better the function of this forearm, wrist, hand. In other words, we try to keep we're going to lift and we're going to lower. And we're going to try to keep the same distance between the rod butt and the forearm. And we're going to keep the thumb, top of the forearm, in a straight line. Okay? So, going back to, we're going to do vertical now. So we got to get the slack out. We always start the cast with the fly rod pointing at the fly line. And we need the slack removed. So there's two things that have to happen before we do anything. So, because I want to start bending my rod tip the minute I start the back cast. And I'm going to smoothly go from slow to fast to an abrupt stop straight up. Now notice, as I'm looking at the camera and looking at you now, you can't really see my face because my hand is right in front of my face. And my hand is right even with my ear. Now, in order for that to happen, as I bend and slowly move from slow to fast, I'm using this big shoulder muscle to raise the elbow. If I do not raise the elbow and I do that, I get what we call, when I told you, a big wide loop. Okay? Because the rod tip did this, doming, instead of this. So now we pause. How long do we pause from the time I stop the back cast till they do the forward cast? It all depends upon how much line you have outside the rod tip. Today we have 35 feet of fly line with the yarn. It's 35 feet from where I stand to the yarn, okay? So the pause is not very long to take that line to unroll, to almost unroll, okay? So if you were to look at the fly line on the back cast, which we're not going to do today because we got a lot of things to think about, but as you progress in your casting journey, you will really benefit from watching your back cast to find out when it looks like a candy cane. In other words, the fly line's straight, the leader hasn't made it yet, so it looks like that. So I do that, boom, there's the candy cane, bingo. So this is called a pick up and lay down. To review and to summarize, number one, slack removed, rod tip pointed at the fly line, smoothly go in a slow to fast motion to abrupt stop straight up, and there I am right there, and pause, and then as lower the elbow coming forward, you're going to stop halfway down, bingo. Okay, now I'm going to turn around so you can watch my hand and my arm motion on a pick up and lay down, so we can kind of get an understand of what really has to happen. So first of all, before we begin the cast, remember, slack removed, rod tip pointed to the fly line. We're going to slowly and smoothly go from slow to fast to an abrupt stop straight up. Pause and stop halfway down smoothly, slow, starting slow, speeding up to a halfway down. Up, down, down. Straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. Now, notice when I stop going straight up, my thumb and my forearm are in a straight line. The rod butt is very close to my forearm. Okay, we want to keep a firm, what we call a firm wrist. Okay, so if I do a cast and I don't adhere to that, notice the size of the loop. One more time, size of the loop. The line, the forward cast didn't go exactly where I wanted it. So that's why it's so important to do the mechanics of the cast every time. One more step I'd like to share with you and alert you to the Fly Fishers International website, and if you would go to the Learning Center, you would come up with the casting and skills development, fly casting skills development, and we have 3 different levels of casting ability: bronze, silver, and gold. So the bronze, which is the basic, we deal basic with a lot with 35 feet of fly line. In other words, 35 feet from the target to where we're standing. So what I would just share with you, and if you perfect what I have shared with you in the video today, you should be able to do a pickup and lay down and hit a specific target, because accuracy is so important in fly fishing. We need to put the fly where we want it and how we want it. So if I'm just going to do a basic pickup and lay down, pick it up, lay it down, and right on the target. Okay, so that tells me, hey, that's pretty good. I must have did that okay. So if I come down and I kind of do something like that, it's way over there. Why did that happen? So we got to pick it up, lay it down. And if I do a big back loop and I do that and it lands like that, that's no good, right? So we got it, boom, right there. Pick it up, pause, right on the target. Pick it up, boom, hit the target. Okay, done.